However, by that time, I already had an investment philosophy, which is very simple. Does it make the world a better place? If I invest $100,000 into this business or into this venture, into this person, this company, whatever, will it make the world a better place?
Good morning, everyone, or good evening to Robert over here. Welcome to another episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. Today, I'm very excited to have Robert Indries, the founder of Global Business Advisors, a holding company of eight different varied companies and varied industries. And Robert, besides the crazy accomplishments professionally, man, you've got such a cool story on a personal level. So I'd love to just get to know you. Thank you for being here, first of all, and love to hear about your story.
Thank you for having me. When I was young, I was born in a small town in Transylvania, and we were a good family. There was a lot of love, not a lot of money. So we're very, very fortunate for everything that we've gotten. Every month I say my blessings that, I was raised by both of my parents and both of my parents were loving, which is not the case in 80% of cases, right? You either don't have a parent or, one of them, maybe doesn't love you as much as they could, right? So, or they don't show it at least. So I was fortunate enough to have two loving parents. But one was a teacher, the other one was a nurse. So income wasn't, the best. And so they tried to make it work with two children. Really enjoyed my upbringing though, worked a lot. Didn't really have any time to waste. You would always have something to clean, something to do, something to prepare, and so on. So it was very nice. And then I started falling in love with technology a lot.
What age was that, Robert? Because I remember when we spoke, you started working on the land in Transylvania, right? The Transylvania, by the way, guys, in Romania, correct?
Yes, the Transylvania, yes, in Romania. Well, I started working when I was like 6, I think, something like that.
Wow.
On the farm, you start working when you're young. It's like the moment you can walk and communicate, right? Maybe 5, 6 years old, whatever. I don't remember when I started. Like the memories I have, I was already working. Like that's the oldest memories I have. Like I was already engaged in some form of adding value to the family, right? And so then I started falling in love with technology when I was like 10, because I found a book that I really love, The Evolution of Technology, which changed my life completely. It was just crazy how good the book was. It was an expensive book. I had to ask my parents for money, and if you would ask them for anything, like they would never have money. But if I would ask money for books, they would have money, right? This one was the price of 2 books, so I had to convince them to buy it, but they eventually did, and they had a lot of cool pictures.
Robert, did you ever buy books, sell it, and use it the proceeds for things that they wouldn't buy for you?
I didn't do it with books. I did it with CDs. I figured out at one point that people are willing to pay, I'm going to make this up, right? This was a long time ago, but let's say people are willing to pay $10 for a CD that has content on it, which is music, movies, games, doesn't matter. And the CD cost $5. So basically, I saved money to buy a CD writer, and I bought one. And I bought 2 CDs. I asked some people, like, what do you want on CDs? And they said, oh, I want all of the music from this band. It's okay, I found it online somewhere. I downloaded it, I put it on the CD, and I sold it. And so then I made $10. And so that $10 I used to buy 2 more CDs. And I kept doing that over and over and over again. I sold hundreds and hundreds of pirated CDs. I don't recommend that to anyone, but
Brilliant. So you figured out at 10 years old, you figure out the willingness to pay was a lot more than $5. Yes. And that sounds like that's where your entrepreneurship almost started.
You can say that. I probably had some other things before that, but that was the first real venture I went into, because I needed capital to buy the CD writer. So I had to save and work to get it. And then I invested the capital, and then, I started making a profit every single week. I was making money, and then I would use that, right, to keep reinvesting into the business. So let's say that was my first little venture right there. And then I started working as an engineer. My first project was to build the systems for a manufacturing plant in a larger city, in the capital city of the region. And the plant itself was very successful. The issue was that they were managing all of it on paper, pen and paper. And so I talked to the owner. I was one of the manufacturing line workers. Like I was literally with a little hammer, hammering things in and so on, because I was having odd jobs when I was younger, because I moved out of my hometown and my parents' house when I was 14. So I would get odd jobs to sustain myself. And that was one of the jobs. And I remember having that discussion with the owner and telling him about, the systems that they should have. He laughed. He said that they're already talking to a development company in Budapest to build everything. And, I couldn't help myself. I'm like, okay, how much are you going to pay for that? And he didn't want to tell me because obviously I was the smallest paid or lowest wage earner in the entire company. I wasn't even of legal age to work. Like legal age is 16 in Transylvania. So I was 14. So they would just pay me off, like, okay, here's some money. So that was something like I talked to them.
Did you say you had moved out, Robert? You had moved out of your parents' home at 14 years old? This cracks me up, Robert, because like when we're tough on an employee, right? Because they're underachieving and they might be 30 years old. We ourselves might be like, look, he's a kid. It's fine. He'll figure it out. And sometimes you hear stories like this where no, an actual kid had moved out and started a job at 14 years old. It tells you how I don't know how to explain it, but basically how we're forced in this new world into having grown ass children at 30, 32 years old. They're still not completely productive citizens, unfortunately, versus Europe. Some of these countries, people are driving at 12. Unfortunately, smoking cigarettes at 13 and drinking at 14, but at least they have jobs and are productive.
The first time this is something no one knows. The first time I smoked, I think I was 7, and I smoked on the farm because we would always work the land. You had corn.
Yep.
And if anyone saw corn ever, it's like a stick coming out of the land, and the corn things just pop like that out of the stick, right? The corn cobs. And around the corn, there's like a little bush of whatever it is, And so what we would do, we would get paper, and like we would just take paper from somewhere. We would put that bush into the paper, like swirl it up, and then light it, and then smoke. There was no tobacco or anything. Like you couldn't afford tobacco. I mean, come on, like we didn't have any money. And when I say we didn't have any money, I haven't seen money until I was like 9 or 10. There was no money. It was just, if you wanted to eat, you would go into the apple tree and pick an apple. Or if you wanted milk, you would go to the.
But at least you had the castle, right?
We had the castle close, yes, but I mean, we never went to the castle when we were young. So I saw it when I was 21. I think the stories are more incredible than the castle itself. I've seen much bigger and more beautiful castles. What's unique about this one is like if there's a peak amongst all of the mountains, there's a mountain in the middle of the mountains that has a peak, and the castle is right on the peak. So you can almost not attack it.
That's incredible.
Right? It's like very steep to get there from any side. And actually the entrance to because now it's a tourist attraction. So at the bottom, the entrance is at the bottom of the little mountain. I mean, I say little, but maybe it's like 2,000 meters, which is like 4,500 feet, up elevation. So you have that entrance, and then you go up, and then it really feels medieval, like in every sense of the word. It doesn't feel posh. It doesn't feel like a palace. It doesn't feel like anything like it. It literally feels like a medieval castle, like something you would see in The Witcher or something, So.
Amazing. Robert, let's fast forward to your current organization. You've built a little business empire, establishing 8 businesses across so many different industries, and 7-figure revenues is no feat, right? That's no small feat. That's very challenging. Can you shed light on what are some of the driving factors behind this consistent success and consistent growth across many different companies?
Well, there are multiple things that help in that regard. One of the things that helps a lot is to have your values straight. For example, when the cryptocurrency boom happened, obviously I was already a tech geek. I knew about Bitcoin, I knew about Ethereum, I knew about anything, and I had money. I could have invested in it. However, by that time, I already had an investment philosophy, which is very simple, or part of it is very simple. It's, does it make the world a better place? If I invest $100,000 into this business or into this venture, into this person, this company, whatever, will it make the world a better place? And with cryptocurrency, it simply didn't. It's just a currency. It's like buying euro when I have dollars, right? It doesn't make the world a better place simply to buy euro because I believe the euro will go up, right? And then the dollar will stay wherever it is. So my 100 grand in dollars next year will be 120 grand in dollars, right? Because of that currency exchange. So that's the money market. So the money market by default does not add value to society. And so I didn't invest. And if you have an investment philosophy of what are you going to invest your capital in, and capital of time, resources, money, then it can be much easier for you to conduct your life and conduct business in general. Because I'm not going to invest time or capital into, for example, many of the vanity things that I see, currently going on, because I don't need, a car above my pay grade, right? When I'll be making 10 million in profit, right, per year, right, like literally take home cash discretionary income, maybe I'll get a Porsche or a Mercedes or whatever, I don't know. But what I'm saying is that you don't need to spend your capital in a way that aligns with social norms, right? Because you really don't need to, or trends. For example, a trend that happened last year and the year previous was the trend of drop shipping. I'm sure you've seen it. Everyone and their uncle were starting drop shipping companies because no labor, no logistics, no storage, no anything. Just set up a website or a store, whatever it was about, and then you would just sell bracelets, customized bracelets or whatever. I'm like, I'm sure it works, but again, does it make the world a better place? If it doesn't, I'm not interested. And so this very narrow focus helps me talk to the right people, engage in the right conversations, invest in the right opportunities, and so on and so forth, right? If my narrow focus would be in gaming, let's say, right? I only care about gaming. I'm making this up, but let's say that's my focus. Then it's easy because then I would invest in, I would know, number one, I would know how the industry works, what a good game looks like, what a good community looks like, and so on and so forth, right? So I would have known to invest in, I can't remember what the game studio is called. It was one with like a pit bull on it. But I knew that they're going to be big based on the quality of games that they were producing.
Because gaming. You knew gaming. Is that right?
Yes, I know gaming from a past life. So basically, they made, Clash of Clans and, things of that nature. And I would see the quality of that software, of that product, and I'd say, gosh, these guys are going places, right? And so long story short, 5 years later, $1 billion company, right? So you would see that. And so whatever your niche is, whatever you love, whatever you want to focus on, if it's skydiving, focus on that. If it's economics, finance, focus on that. If it's real estate, focus on that, right? So have an investment philosophy and then go in that direction. My investment philosophy allows me to be very broad in multiple different sectors, right? Because in every sector, you can make the world a better place. So maybe it's a little bit too broad for many people. However, something that I've noticed is that business is the same in every industry you go in. The KPIs that matter are always the same, right? There are things like how many people do you talk to or engage with every month? How many of those, like what's your conversion rate, right? How many of those convert? Then how much is the average purchase value, right? What's the client lifetime value? And so on and so forth. Like what's your profit margin? What's your operating cost, overhead? So the same principles of business apply in any business, doesn't matter the industry. So once you become good at business in general, it's like it doesn't matter what industry you go in, you can turn around any business or you grow any business. So the majority of my businesses I have been invited into, right? Like I have been given 20% shares or 30% shares, whatever, up to 50% shares I've been given in businesses because I just grow and grow and grow them. Like I help them grow.
How do you do? Give us, Robert, do you go into a business? Give us the first three things that you would do to either turn the business around or to grow a business that hasn't been growing fast enough.
The first thing you do is you do a full audit of what's there. You want to see what's going on in every department. You look at finances, you look at performance of employees, you look at clients, you look at client satisfaction, you look at the marketing funnels, if they're working or not. If they have sales, you look at the sales team, right? And so on. So you do an audit of everything because it's much easier for me to tell you that Avetis, you really should let Frank go, right? Like he's just dragging you behind.
I'm not firing Frank. It's not happening, Robert.
So for you, you've known Frank for 5 years, right? And so when I see Frank and I see how much lower productivity he has, I'm like, okay, how do we turn him into a productive individual? If you really want to keep him, move him to some other place or give him some more training or whatever. Or if you can't make it work, you need to let him go. You can also decide to not take my advice or to take it partially, right? To take 50% of the advice. However, in most cases, what we see is that maybe we make, I kid you not, 200 to 300 recommendations after an audit of things that can be improved in a business.
Wow.
So what we do is, obviously we don't do all of them. We leave Frank there if it's hard for you to make the change. And then, we improve Bob's closing rate. And then, we look at the marketing funnel and improve the PPC campaign. And then we do whatever, right? Like whatever can be done, low-hanging fruit, we just start working with you. So the difference between us and other agencies or firms or consultants is that we tend to not give advice or coaching. We tend to be implementers, executioners. So you come to us when you actually want your business to grow. You don't come to us because someone told you need a coach. Go get a coach, right? And then feel good about yourself. When you come to us, you say, my business is at 3 million. I want to take it to 5. And I really want to take it to 5. Like I've made up my mind. I want to grow. Or I'm at 500,000. I want to take it to 2 million, whatever it is, right? And so when someone's really made up their mind that they want to scale, they want to grow, then they are going to hire a chief of operations and a manager and, a turnaround expert, something. Like they're going to find a way. So we're just one of those people, right? So another company that used to do this, I don't know if they still do it, is Tony Robbins. They used to have a turnaround team a few years ago, maybe. I'm a little bit older, so maybe 5-10 years ago they used to have one. I don't know if they still do, because now they have their own portfolio of companies. So I don't know if they still help others. But that's exactly what they used to do. They would go into a company and then just help them grow. So we do the same thing. We don't tell you, you should have a process for this. We build a process for you, right? We don't tell you should manage your time better. We put in the VA and we manage your time better, right? And so all of a sudden now everything gets managed and you're there as the owner or the director or VP. You're like, oh, this just works now. What happens then is now you have the energy and the mental power to actually look forward. You're not bogged down by the day-to-day. There are less fires you need to tackle. Now you can actually be the strategist that you should be as a director or C-level executive, right? Like this is what you should actually be doing all day, thinking. Just one good idea, just one good decision a day. That's all I need from you, right? Because it's your company. I'm not going to do that for you. You tell me where you want to take the company. I'll just make sure it gets there as easy as possible. However, you just give me one good idea per day, and then you can even take off. Like you can give me 20 good ideas today and then take 3 weeks off, as far as I'm concerned.
Robert, I'm hoping that these folks have bigger BHAGs than going from 3 to 5 million, right? So I'm guessing they have much larger goals, because from 3 to 5 with the equity that they give up probably may or may not be worth it.
So we have taken companies. We have success stories, for example, from 4 million to 20 million. We have other success stories from 20 something million to over 50 million. Another success story was from 300 grand to 4 million, and so on and so forth. So and all of these are different industries, different people, different locations.
What's been the most impressive turnaround, Robert? And forget the revenue dollars. Like, what made it possible, right? Because again, they say that it takes two to dance, right? Give me an example of a really cool story.
Company in the UK. In the recruitment space. Owner has been doing recruitment for 15 years. Company was already, I believe, 7 years old. Company was making maybe 80 grand a year, barely covering her salary and then a part-time.
Wow.
They hired me as a coach because we met as an event, weirdly enough. I almost never go, but when I do go, I do some networking. So we met. She hired me as a consultant. We worked as consultants for a little while. And then she said that she wants to give me shares. So I went into the company. I got the percentage. And then we did two main things, or 2 to 3 main things. Number one, we changed the company structure. Because the owner was unhappy. And I can't work with someone that's unhappy. Not that I can't work with them to help them become happy, but if you keep being unhappy forever, what's the point? Get a job. Like just don't do this to yourself. Just close shop and do something else, right? And so they're unhappy because they're still doing recruitment, and they really figured out that they don't want to do recruitment. They don't mind doing it because they like it. However, they're at the bottom of the totem pole in terms of interest that people would give them. And I don't want to over accentuate their negative aspects. They had a lot of positives as well, and many clients over the years, and some big names as well, and so on and so forth. So they've done good for themselves, right? At the same time, they're part of the 96% of companies that never pass $1 million. And this is real statistics. 96% of companies never, ever pass $1 million in their entire life of a company. So if you're there, guess what? You're in the 96% percentile. And so if you pass $1 million, you're in the top 4%. If you pass $2 million, you're already in the top 3% of companies globally, right? And so that's amazing. We've passed that, quite a while ago. We're very happy. And we passed 10 million in revenue, I think, 1.5 years ago, more or less. So
what percentage is that, Robert? 10 million, less than 1%, I'm guessing, right?
I'm guessing I didn't check that, but I'm guessing you're in the top 1% at that point. If you're making over $1 million.
At least.
The only difference is that within that top percentile, there's also the multi-billion dollar entities, like the valuation of Apple, I think, was like a $1 trillion or something like that, the last year. So you're in the same category with them, and you're still 100,000 times smaller than they are, right? Because you're at 10 million, they're at 1 trillion. So you're 100 times smaller, and both of you are in the same percentile, right? So the end really changes. In the first 96% is between 0 and 1 million, right? And then everyone else, is in the top, 3 to 4%. So it's like
This is important to know, Robert, because so many of us people running businesses, we don't appreciate what we do, right? Because you hear 100, 200, $500 million valuations or $1 billion in revenue. It makes you feel like you haven't done anything special. But last 2 years, we made Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies.
Congratulations.
And to me, thank you very much. It wasn't a big deal looking at the revenue, but we grew by 235%. And I think we were 0.07% in the world. And you would never think that because our revenues are not crazy. It's definitely not in the tens of millions. We're getting there very, very quickly. But you forget to celebrate the fact that you're in this very, very rare space. But you hear so many companies, especially in tech, because we're a tech consulting firm, doing hundreds of millions of dollars. It makes you feel like you haven't done anything special. It's very important for us all to know. If you're doing close to $5 to $10 million, you're a legitimate business. So anyway.
Yeah, very established. Yes, 5 to 10 million, especially if you have a track record of maintaining multiple millions for multiple years, right? So if like 3 years ago you hit 2 million, then 2 years ago you're at 3 million, 1 year ago 4 million, now you're at 5 million. That's so valuable. That company already crazy valuable, right? Because you can sell that at $15 million or whatever. Like you could sell it at a good margin. Or even if you sell it at 5 million, I mean, come on. If you get $5 million in cash right now, and you even put it in a very conservative 7% a year, right? Index fund, whatever, right? Then you literally make like 350 grand a year passive, right?
Yep.
From that same money. So let's say you don't need 350 grand to live off of. So let's say you use 100 grand to live, and then $250,000 goes back into the pot, right? Compound interest for the rest of your life. You'll never have to work again. Never, ever.
One big difference, Robert. One big difference. We're in the US and we're in California and we're in Los Angeles. So
let's say $250,000 you need to live.
Yeah, they would take away half the money just to taxes.
You're so right.
And then if you have partnerships and things like that, and then the cost of living here is insane. But listen, you're absolutely right. The point is you could live off the interest for the rest of your life.
Yes.
So do something you love, scale a business. If you want to sell it, you have lots of options. I get it. Robert, let's go back to this company. Like, what did they do right? Along with you, obviously, what did they do right for them to be successful? They were pivoting. What did they pivot to?
So they pivoted to become a culture company, so people company, right? So companies would hire them when they wanted to align the culture company-wide, organization-wide. When they wanted cultural alignment within their company, they would hire us, right? In another instance, when someone was thinking to acquire a company, they could hire us to do an assessment, do the culture's fit, right? Or another instance is after the acquisition of a company, again, to make sure everyone understands one another, they get along, they work well, and so on and so forth. All of a sudden, this person wanted to wake up in the morning, right? Because now they felt they were leaving meaningful change in organizations, not just being one of the recruiters, that they were being hired for. And so they loved it. That was a very meaningful change, right? The company obviously passed 6 figures, or multiple 6 figures, right? And so because you said don't focus on revenue, focus on biggest impact and change. So as far as I'm concerned, this is huge, because now this woman-owned company, right? This mother now is enjoying her life, which means that she will spend her time with her children and her spouse much better, because now they're a happier individual all around, right? They will now work in a way that is much more productive, because before they were working because they had to, now they're working because they're enjoying it, right? And then
huge.
The entire product offering has changed, right? And now every company can stay with us, and typically stays with us many months or years, because we do a cultural audit at the beginning. Takes 1, 2 months, 3 months max if it's a big company. And then from there, we go into a 1-year cultural acceleration program, which means that, hey, we gave you an X number of suggestions or recommendations based on the interviews we'd had with your employees, right? And then from there, now you need an implementer. So who's going to implement? Because you're the boss. They're not going to be honest with you, right? Because they can't say anything bad to you because they want to keep their job. They want to keep their relationship with you. But anonymously, they're going to tell us how they feel, what they feel should change and how. So we can now implement in your stead because they trust us to be a third party and not say, hey, Frank told me this about you, right? I'm never going to say Frank told me. I'm just going to say, hey, people in the organization feel this about leadership. How can we enact positive change? What do you guys think? And they tell us what they think. And then we bring our suggestions like, well, these are some things we think could be done. And then we make sure those are implemented. So the company has changed drastically in the couple years since I've been there. The owner enjoys it more. They used to have much more debt before. Now they're paying off their debt.
Nice. It's amazing. It's a great story, Robert.
And so it's just cool to see, just cool to see, how much impact we can leave right through the little things we do in business.
It's huge, man. We don't realize what an impact we make by having a really good culture, because what ends up happening is if you have a good culture, then it trickles down to people having a better personal life because they go home happier and more pleasant and more positive. And then that trickles down to their spouse and their children and all the way down to their parents and their brothers and all that. Robert, what's a quick opposite story? Like what's one company that just wouldn't maybe implement some of these things and it ended up just not working out? You had to divorce, whether they asked you to move on or you asked them to move on. Like how did that work out?
I had a company I became part of at one point. They wanted to productize ideas. Very good idea. I really loved it. Because imagine you're Coca-Cola and you want an idea for a new taste. And so now you can tell people, hey, suggest your ideas here on this platform. And the winning idea we'll give $1 million to. Imagine how many people would just say, oh, I want a grapefruit taste or whatever, and this and whatever. And, a lot of ideas would come in. And so we basically, that was the idea, to have a platform for ideas, and you would have like contracts. It was on blockchain. So you'd have contracts for ideas. So you would own the idea, and then Coca-Cola would buy the idea, like the NFT or whatever, like they would buy that from you and pay you for it, and then they would own it basically. And so everything was on contracts. So we had that. The reason why that company did not work is because the main person behind the company, I don't want to say too harsh words, but they weren't the most honest of folks, right? And so a lot of, I don't even know how to use kind words, but deceit, maybe a lot of deceit, a lot of pushing back on stuff, a lot of, things of that nature. At one point we engaged with them to, like one of my companies engaged with them to build something for them. They negotiated like crazy so that, they pay super, super little. When we started working with them, at one point they were yelling at our engineers because they're pinging them at 5 a.m. their time. By 7 a.m., obviously they still didn't wake up. They're pinging them again. And by 9 a.m., when they would start working, they would already lose it, right? And tell them things like, well, you work for me now. You work when I work. And I went to the guys like, dude, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Well, what year do you think it is? Year 1000? No, these are employees. They're not slaves. They work when they have their jobs. When they want to work, then that's when they work. Very, very bad experience. They ended up not even paying for the service. We did the service. They never paid.
Wow. Shocking.
Just overall bad. Like we could easily sue them for, what they did or what for that engagement.
What a shame.
But at the end of the day, like you just cut ties with people like that, right? Like you don't want to do anything like that because you realize that it's not someone you want to associate with, number one, even if it would work, right? Like even if the venture would be successful, I don't want to be a partner with that guy anymore, right?
I don't blame you. I won't work with anyone that I don't enjoy working with, period.
Yes, exactly.
And even if I'm making a ton of money, in fact, in 2008 and 9, I worked with my business partner, Jeff Mitchell, and we were in a horrible recession and we were struggling like hell. And yet our sense of humor and trust got us through that recession. And then, we're in a pretty deep recession right now in my industry. And jokingly, I told one of my directors here is you ever seen a company struggling when they're, having so much fun struggling? And she laughed. She said, yeah, it's actually really, really nice to see, because what ends up happening is you don't have to be miserable. You don't have to be miserable to be happy. In fact, another cool story is we have an advisor that comes in and said he was talking about this company that was growing so much faster than us, and I was starting to get frustrated. I wanted to take a chair and throw it out the window because I was frustrated. Why can't we grow at that speed? He said, listen, don't worry about it, because you guys are always happy, you're always smiling, you're always having a good time. That's more important, right? This individual might be doing better from a business perspective and growth, but he's miserable. And I thought, you know what? You're absolutely right. You can keep that growth. You can keep that fame. You can keep all those things. I'm more interested in having a good time and smiling and enjoying, because we work 9-10 hours a day. We got to be around people we like, trust, know, and feel good around. So I'm a huge advocate of that.
Agreed.
Robert, quick question for you. It's kind of personal, but I thought it was really cool. How do you go from overcoming dyslexia to speaking 5 languages? That's insane. In fact, fluently speaking, because I speak 3 or 4 languages, but these are not fluent. This is really impressive.
A few things. Number one, when I was younger, I couldn't read. And so I thought I'm just stupid, which is, factual. And so I just thought I'm dumber than everyone else. Why can everyone else read so fast and I can't? I didn't know dyslexia was a thing until I went to a conference in another place, in another town. And this was, I think I was like 20 at the time. And the speaker was talking about dyslexia. And after the talk, someone behind me said, oh, that was so cool about dyslexia, like what they said. I can't remember what it was about. I'm like, what is that? I have no idea what it is. Like dyslexia, don't you know dyslexia? I'm like, no, I don't. What is it? And so he shows me, like he Googled like a Wikipedia page or something. And there are 2 words. The same word, one below the other, right? Or one near the other, something like that. Mm-hmm. And she showed me, it's like, you look at these words and look at the words, like they're identical. And he stops for a second. He looks at the words. Like, no, look again. And I look at the words and like, they're the same word. What should I see? And he looks again, like he is confused now. He's like, don't you see some letters are reversed? And then I look very closely, like I take a second, right? I'm like, oh, I didn't notice. Yes, they're reversed now. I see them. And he looks like, dude, you're dyslexic. Like you couldn't see that. Yeah. Like he showed me 3 times, and just when I really like the A was reversed and whatever, like it wasn't the same word. Like the second word wasn't a word. It was like just some symbols. And so I'm like, oh, okay. And so now I realize that I can't really read because of that, like because of dyslexia. And so I'm like, okay, then let's do some research on dyslexia. Now I finally know what I have. Let me do the research. And then I find that dyslexia is not the inability to learn or to read or to write, whatever. It is the, let's say, difficulty. It's much more difficult for you to read or to, comprehend certain things. And so through my study, it showcased that the only thing you need to do as someone that's dyslexic is to add, 3 to 10 times more effort than anyone else. So If someone needs to
Wow.
read one book in a language, in their language, before they're fluent in reading, because they read 300 pages, so that's 300 reps, so to speak, right? And so now you can read fluently. I would need to read 10 books or 20 books or 100
Wow.
books, whatever. So what I said is, okay, I'm going to beat dyslexia. So what I did is I started reading a lot. Up until then, I read almost nothing. And then I started reading, and I read, I think, over 100 books in a few years. But I literally read them, right? Like I read word for word. I was practicing reading. Imagine practicing reading in your 20s. So I was practicing reading. And then also I was writing. I said, because writing is another way of practicing your reading and writing and dyslexia to improve it. So I wrote, I think, over 1 million words in articles, right? So I wrote hundreds of articles. And then I took jobs, like weird jobs, like as a translator. I took jobs. And literally, if you ever go to Spain, there are like these fancy museums, like Picasso or whatever. I translated like 100 museums, like all of like when you see Spanish and English, I translated that. So it was so cool. I picked up that job randomly, but they accepted because I
Amazing.
proved that I speak fluent Spanish and fluent English. And they were amazed that I would take the job. I'm like, yeah, let me take the job. And so I did that, and I did many other things just so that I can, beat dyslexia. And then I eventually managed.
What a great story. I mean, I hear this all the time. One of my most focused employee, I found out has what is it, ADD? And I was shocked. I was like, that's not possible. You're the most focused person I know. And the person said, well, yeah, because I had to be focused. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get anything done. And I learned a ton. So this shows us there's no excuses. If you want to do something, you can do it. Robert, as we wrap it up, how do people find you in case they want to be part of this, this great experience? You help companies scale, you help companies grow, exit. How do they reach you? How do they find you?
Well, if they just Google my full name, they should find me, right? The first 3 pages of Google, they shouldn't be able to miss me. I do have a domain with my full name, robertindries.com. And if they want to talk to me personally, they can email me at robertindries.com. They just need to mention your show, like the podcast, and then I promise to reply personally.
Love it. Appreciate that. Robert, it's been great, man. I wish we had more time to talk more about your incredible hobbies and the 17 countries you lived in and all the cool stuff you do. Maybe we'll do a second one just to cap it off right. Great connecting with you, Robert. Congrats on the growth, man. Thank you for sharing your awesome journey with us.
Thank you so much as well.
And that brings us to the end of another great episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. I want to thank you for joining us and hope you took away some valuable insights to apply in your professional journey. Don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss out on the next great conversation. I promise it'll be good. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd appreciate if you could leave us a review. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also help others discover the podcast. Better leaders mean better working environments. Better working environments leads to happier people. Remember, a rising tide lifts all boats. I'm Avetis, and this has been the Tech Leaders Playbook. Keep leading, keep learning, keep giving, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay inspired, my friends.